Okay. Bob, are you ready? Ronnie?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Good evening. Calling the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Would you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay.
Exposed.
So moving on, update on superintendent search. We, right now, Misty Swanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Misty Swanson. I'm the Chief Deputy at the Idaho School Boards Association. To start off today for this open session, I was just going to go through real quickly what today's process will look like for your superintendent search. And then we will, I guess, go into your regular board meeting after that. So what to expect today is when you go into executive session, we will discuss the reference check results of your superintendent candidate semifinalists. So we will share what we've heard from each of those reference checks and any other information. You can also have further discussion about the application packets that you've received, any other information you've received. We'll go through at that point. The board will discuss, deliberate, spend as much time as you need, and then you'll come back into open session, have your regular meeting. And part of the regular meeting will be an open session where you'll have further discussion of your candidates and possibly, hopefully, make a decision on who you want to move forward as finalists. After that, we'll also talk about the interview day and the logistics of that. And then we'll also talk about the interview process. So we'll get through all of that once we get back into open session a little bit later. Any questions?
Good.
Thank you.
All right, we need to make a motion to move into executive session under 74-206-1A.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to move in the executive session under Idaho Code 74-206A.
1A.
1A.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Jefferson?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Aye.
I just got comfortable. Yeah, you did. That's why we have to move. You don't go to sleep. Just muting it. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get out of this. I'm not gonna be the sole person on the screen, so I'm gonna move down there and hide behind.
Yeah, have something for people to look at.
No, they don't wanna look at me.
I'll open up the chat. We get some comment on your earring choice.
Yeah, no.
Is that not what you're after?
No.
So the laptop do the same thing? I said laptops that were there.
No.
The last one didn't do that.
No.
He's copying off.
But if you'll notice, if you ever have your cell phone on your desk and you get kind of a buzzing or clicking in your speakers, because it's actually the speakers that it interferes with, not the equipment. It's the actual speaker itself. Because you have a coil in the speaker. You send radio waves through a coil, induces a voltage, makes a sound. Keep up with me here.
I'm still trying to get mine to quit being noisy. Did you get my thing today?
Well,
Anyway.
it serves you right for kicking it.
I have to kick it to make it quit making noise.
No, what makes it quit making noise
It's because I kick it.
Help this take would have solved that a long time ago.
Yeah,
and
but
caused
then-
less damage to the
Well,
fragile
I can kick it and
components
then it stops
inside.
for a while, and then pretty soon it's kick it and it stops. So it's like
Dust builds up on your fan, which
Oh,
makes it
no.
out of balance, which causes the noise.
we have no dust in our building. I don't know where you're getting that information.
Just saying.
So,
So we're gonna blow it out, or I'll try and get rid of my.
the girls yet this summer.
No, they have not been up there yet.
February.
Yeah.
It was 24 hours.
Larry, like I do, trucks and all the dust.
And, buses that have no smoke coming out of their exhaust every day.
Well, because they run so clean.
why we're trying to get new ones, so that they run cleaner than the old ones.
Some of those ones that run on French fries, smell like French fries, they haven't ever.
We're trying to get everybody to switch over to those propane ones, but it's like, that's not very economical for our area, because number one, there's no stations anywhere that we can fuel at.
Right.
And the remoteness that we have, sweet NOLA and buses running all over the country, there's just is not, we're not in an area where that's feasible. So I was glad to see that UW fund that we applied for made it so that you could replace diesel buses with newer diesel buses that are more efficient, so that's better. How was your vacation?
Two vandals in there, at least.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. We gotta move it to 48 hours then, huh? Is that what you're saying? I think Heather left me a note here.
Hey, I'm pretty dedicated to my job, but I'm not staying here for a 48-hour board meeting.
No,
Actually, that was that's a different.
Yeah.
no.
If you want to stay, you can, but I'm not. So, is Heather,
She was just in.
She'll be back.
yeah. I assume that this note is from her, but it's purely innocuous, okay?
Karen about the agenda and like if amending the packet contents, and she said the 48-hour rule is only regarding the agenda, not the packet content. So is that what your question was?
That, I think
Oh,
that,
okay.
So that's why I think it was changing to 48.
I think that she's got the answer.
So if it's about packet content, the law doesn't address it. If it's an agenda, then it does.
Yeah, and I think that it's agenda preparation is the policy. Back in February, it said 24 hours, so I'm guessing we're changing it to 48.
Thank you.
So we can say change the agenda, and then you can go ahead and have packets later.
And I
Okay.
can, yeah. And then, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He says-
So just table the thing.
Yeah. It's tomorrow. Friday. To discuss it. But in open session Friday.
Okay.
That was his suggestion.
Yeah. Dan's not over here.
He is here, he's in there.
Are we able to do a executive session Friday? I can't at 1 o'clock. I've got a doctor's appointment. Oh,
Where,
In the depreciation.
okay. We can shoot for Friday.
The reason why he said that is because we're holding us hiring back, so we can't post and hire jobs that we have open until those are
So that
approved.
is all cleared up.
And so it's just keeping our schools from being able to hire when we don't approve those, so.
So, but he thinks we need to, table the whole thing.
Yeah,
until
Cause he
then.
says that still singles it to those 3 people, and which is still kind of cutting it,
yeah.
in his opinion, kind of close.
It's like, well, we got him here.
So how
Out of
are
trouble.
you going to,
Friday.
move to table this to executive session?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay.
Are we ready to? I guess we're not ready. Here we go. Wait till Dan gets here.
That's, you, wherever you're comfortable.
Right here.
Okay.
You're good up here if you want to. You know, I mean, you get such a good view of everything.
Yes, you do get a water.
Okay, we need to,
Thanks.
we need to make a motion to move out of executive session.
Madam Chairman, I move that we move out of the executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman, on the agenda preparation policy, that, as I understand it, that should read 48 hours instead of 24, right? So we have a typo in there that actually lists both numbers. And so I would move to accept that, but with the correction to the policy number 260, agenda preparation. Second paragraph, it should read at least 48 hours prior to each scheduled board meeting. So I move that we accept the consent agenda with that correction.
Is there a
Second that.
Second by Bob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Jefferson,
Was there any discussion?
any discussion?
I just, on the first meeting minutes for June 12th, kind of minuscule, but somebody's name was misspelled. It's item B under general patron input, Clint Roy Backer, I think it's Rohr Backer or whatever, R-O-H-R. I just wanted to make sure that was corrected.
He's probably never had that name spelled right.
Yeah, maybe he
I'm
misspelled.
guessing I couldn't read his handwriting.
Maybe he-
No, I say print legibly. People don't print legibly.
Maybe he misspelled his name when he said it.
Kale, I can make that correction even with her signing the rest of it, so.
No problem. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other discussion or thing on the minutes? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on, general patron input for non-agenda items. Sorry, it sounded like a cow.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. The sheet is blank. Moving on to action items. Action from executive session regarding superintendent search. We need to make a motion to proceed forward
Within the
names of for the next step.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move forward with candidate Ryan Hawkins based on the rave reviews we received on the call references.
Madam Chair, I would like to move forward with Douglas Shane Erickson. He also received stellar reviews and has done a lot of good work.
Madam Chair, I'd like to put forward the name of Craig Wood. After reviewing the candidates' references, I find that he's an adequate candidate with stellar marks at where he's at, and I'd like to put his name forth.
Someone make a motion to move Craig Woods, Shane Erickson, and Ryan Hawkins to the next level.
I move that we move forward with Mr. Craig Woods, Mr. Ryan Hawkins, and Mr. It's not Shane. What- Douglas Shane Erickson.
Good.
Is there a second?
I'll second
that motion.
Second by Terry.
Was it Terry? Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on, bus surplus.
Good evening.
Okay, so I laid an updated sheet up there for you. They did get our 2 new buses added to the schedule this afternoon after looking every day, hoping to get that on there,
Are you
so.
excited now?
Yes, I was very excited. We had got all the documentation turned in, but they just had not had them added to the list. So the one that you got on the previous one that we turned in was an estimate, so I was real excited to see that we actually got more on the reimbursement side than what I had estimated, so that was good. Did you have any questions on that? How that thing works there? Appreciate
I don't know at what point that, Madam Chair, Mrs. Davis, I was just curious, when we go to surplus buses out of the long list, like how do you actually, select?
decide which one.
Yeah, because I was trying to measure between like the years and the miles and.
And yeah,
and I
they'll match up.
never figured
well.
out X-
Okay, so I can explain some of that. So some of our older buses don't have the acoustical ceilings. So if you haven't ever been on a school bus or you have been on one, the new ceilings now make it a lot nicer. They're quieter. So a lot of we still have a couple of the old ones that are just like being in a can. So any noise in there is just extremely loud. So some of those that maybe are on the less mileage side is because the drivers don't like to drive them when they go out and drive her out. You know, they're old enough that they've been off of the reimbursement schedule for a long time. So bus 26 only had 115 miles put on it last year. It just sits out there. Bus 58, which is a newer bus, it's only a 2000. That was the one that we had put on the application to the DEQ VW settlement grant that we put in for. They had to meet certain criteria. That's the bus that has a couple of cracks in the bows on the top of the bus. So it has some structural things that would take quite a bit of money to fix. So that one fit into the qualifications for that DEQ grant. So that's why that one was specified at that point. Unfortunately, that, of course, you probably realize we didn't get that money from the DEQ in time for these buses we just got in. It's been a lot more process than what they thought it was going to be. But they assured us that we were getting money for that, and it would be probably coming in sometime this fall. So we can use that on the next purchase that we have coming through. But we have to use that bus at least 3 days a week, and it's not a route bus. So right now we have that bus planned to do our workshop run out to the work center back. So that way we'll be putting miles on to still meet the VW grant qualification. So we just kind of go through that way and look at them, not just based on the mileage. How much repairs have we been having to do on that bus? Is it hard to get the parts for? Is it something we're continually having to work on all the time? So there's several factors that we look at before we decide which ones want to go. So
Thank you.
right now, that's where we're at with those two. Bus 36, which is our very oldest bus, it's the same year as bus 26, and that'll be the next one that we'll be pulling off the route. But we did use that one every day this last year to run that one student over to Ponderosa and back. So that's why that one had so many miles put on it this last year. So anyway, we're coming tonight just to ask permission again to pull these two buses off. Bus 26, which is our oldest one of the oldest two that we have on the fleet right now, 1994. And we could put that one back up like we have done our last few on an eBay sale. If you would like me to go that route with it. There's several ways we could do it. We could do the advertise in the paper, just take bids for it, or we can go with the eBay sale. So whichever way you'd like to pursue that, I can
Madam Chair,
go after that.
I noticed that we're getting a lot of online auctions, like the Meridian auction
Mhm.
and so forth, where companies like Idaho Power and such put their equipment on. Is that a vehicle that might appeal to us?
I don't know if we were able to do it that way or not. I could check into it and see. We have never done it that way. Of course, we had never done the eBay thing until a couple of years ago and tried it, and it's worked out pretty well. So I could inquire into it and see if they even accept them. I don't know what
I don't know what the costs are. Maybe that's
Yeah.
prohibitive,
right.
So
Yeah, I don't know.
just a thought.
Well, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Take me back a couple months ago. We had the same kind of conversation
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago. And the reason you'd went eBay is because you were basically getting a little bit more money than if you
They
just
were.
came in and canning them, right?
Right. Yeah, we had asked our dealer out of Nampa what he would give us for them. And so he gave us, kind of the base rate, which we ended up getting more than that from the eBay sales than what the dealer would give us for them as a used bus. Because there's so many of them out there. And the ones that we've sold, every one that we've sold so far, people are looking for a specific bus. And so they're watching because they were using them to rebuild them into motor homes. One went to a Christmas tree farm over in Oregon somewhere. They use them to haul their workers up to the Christmas tree. So they're looking for a specific thing rather than just putting it out, on a car lot for somebody to come and buy one. They're really watching the sales. So, and it didn't really cost us very much to put them on that way. So we're getting it figured out. So like I said, I can research the other one if you want me to look into that one and see if that would be
Well,
more
if it's
beneficial.
convenient for you, I just noticed that a lot of farm equipment is in surplus equipment in the surrounding areas going on online, and they have like auctions every week.
Right.
And I don't know if that would be appealing to us or not.
Yeah, I've had a few of the bus sales companies, call from all over that they do bus sales specifically. But then there's a cost to list it with them and have them take care of it and then get it to the, so I just really haven't ever talked to them very much about it because it just seemed like it was way beyond the few that we get rid of
If you're
once in a
successful
while.
at where you're at, let it be.
So, and then with bus 58, like I just said, we have to keep that one online and usable until we get the funding and get things going to purchase the next school bus to replace that. But if we can okay that to be surplus once all those factors fall into place, we can just get it taken care of at the same time. That bus, once it gets approved and we get the DEQ funding for that, they require us to destroy the bus. We have to punch a hole in the block, cut the bus in half, and then at that point we can scrap it. So we can have it hauled off, and then we put that scrap money back into our bus replacement fund also.
You said number 58 and number 26?
Yes.
Madam Chair, do you have an estimate of what that might bring? Your best guess?
For the scrap,
No, the other one, the number 26.
they've been going anywhere from, I think our cheapest one was it was over $2,000, wasn't it? Yeah, and the most expensive one we got rid of was over $5,000. So it just depends on what they're looking for.
And we don't have to have a cost for us to do it that way, is that correct?
It wasn't very much to list them on eBay.
eBay seller cost?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as far as the scrapping, we had everything hauled off. We had that one bus that went through this DEQ thing back in 2008, and we got like $800 out of that bus just for scrap. So we get the $24,000 estimate, what they'll pay us for a new bus, plus then you get the scrap on the backside of it. So
Minus 3 tires.
it's more than what we would get if we sold it on eBay. So
Win-win.
yes, exactly. And he did tell me that on that DEQ grant that they would probably be doing that again this year, that the paperwork be coming out so we can apply for that again. This was my first time going through that, so I wasn't really sure how all that stuff worked. But then when I talked to him afterwards, we can apply for more if we wanted to purchase more buses. There are some of the bus companies that asked for 3 or 4 of those. I was like, oh, then you would have to do it every year. So he said they had enough funding to go through at least one more year so we can reapply for at least one more to go through the same process. So it's a good return on getting rid of, one of those older buses. And
So Madam Chair, so we'll be doing that and you're going to go ahead and reapply, or?
yes, I'm going to reapply as soon as they open it up, which will be sometime this fall.
So you're asking to surplus 2 buses, 58 and 26?
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd make a motion to allow Transportation Supervisor Shauna Davis to surplus bus number 26 and bus number 58 after all requirements are met.
No,
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. New hires, transfers, resignations, change of job status, release from contract.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have some questions about this that I'd like to ask, but it's really not something that we can talk about in open session because it's a personnel matter. So I move to table this and have an executive session as soon as possible so we can deal with it and then follow up and do the hires we need to do. But I move to table.
Do we have a second?
I'll
table?
second that.
Any discussion?
Madam Chairman, I guess my question is how soon can we have an executive session? And that's for the rest of the board.
You mentioned the date of Friday.
That's the earliest you can do it.
So
Yeah, you have the 24-hour notice.
Because the posting.
Unless you do it at 7:30 or 8 o'clock tomorrow. Cause you have to have 24-hour notice.
Yeah. I would propose Friday if that's amenable to everyone. Friday afternoon, 4:00.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I will not be here.
okay. Bob?
Kind of iffy. I'm supposed to be over helping my daughter move Friday.
Okay, how about earlier in the day,
I'm gonna be there from 8 till whenever she's through with me.
Jefferson?
I could meet Friday at say like 10 a.m., but anything approaching noon and the rest of the evening, I have a conflict.
I can meet at 10 as well in the
I can meet
morning.
at 10.
I can do it 10.
If you can move it to 8, I can meet at 8.
I can do 8.
I can do 8.
I just can't do 10 because I've all ready to be gone.
I'll do Friday at 8. I just won't go to bed, I guess.
8 in the morning, Bob?
Oh, yeah. 8
Oh, okay.
Or 8 at night, either way.
I'll do 8 in the morning. Okay, so an executive session, Friday, July 12th, 8 a.m. at the district office.
And that'll follow with an open session to make the motion, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. 8
That
a.m.
means I have to have
on
it posted
Friday.
before I'm here tomorrow morning. I guess I'll do that tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Okay, we need a motion.
and Ronnie,
A vote.
you need a vote.
Yeah, you didn't do a vote for that
Okay.
motion yet.
Is there a second?
Uh,
Oh, Terry?
Terry.
Okay, we need a
Yeah.
vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, moving on. Informational items, superintendent search. We have Misty Swanson from the ISBA, Iowa School Board Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. So the next step in your superintendent search process is to talk about the interview day logistics and what you'd like to see that day look like. I have a draft agenda for you to look at.
I can turn off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the start of the day, because I understand one of the board members is unable to attend until 1 p.m. So I have the interview starting at 1 p.m. because that's the most important part for the board to attend. This particular agenda has 3 candidates, which is now what you have. So if you'd like, you can start the day out where your finalists are given a tour of your district and to be able to see your schools. And so I'm just asking for any feedback from the board if that's something you'd like to offer to your finalists. Also, what I'm going to consider is where do you want them to go and who might conduct those tours. Typically, it's not a board member just because we don't want you biased in the process. We don't want, finalists asking you questions or giving you information that might give them an advantage or disadvantage. So if you have any thoughts or anything, please, you can share with me tonight, or you are welcome to email or call me and share that feedback as well. Because you have selected your chairwoman to kind of finalize some of these details at the previous meeting, I've just been working with her so that we can get any of the details determined. So you'll see, so if we do have the interviews and executive sessions starting at 1 p.m., you would approximately go until 4:45 to allow you for 3 one-hour interviews and then 15 minutes between each interview to have some conversation about what you heard. After that, you'll come out of executive session and you'll take a break. So at that point, you would have a notice of quorum. So if you'd like, you can have a community and staff meet the finalists. The board is invited to attend. There will be no business conducted. I'll work with your clerk to make sure we have the agenda posted correctly with notice of quorum. After that community and staff meet and greet is completed, then we would go back into executive session that evening, and you'll have further discussion about the candidates. We'll talk about what your community and staff heard, what they include on their comment cards, any concerns that they have, any great things they have to say about the candidates. And you'll just continue going through all the resources you have in front of you. It's the application packets, it's the reference checks you've done, it's the survey that you send out to your community and staff. We'll just revisit all of that information until you have a solid candidate that hopefully you're ready to offer the position to. Once you're done with executive session, we'll come back into open session. You'll continue your discussions and, like I said, hopefully make a decision on who you would like as your next superintendent. Any questions or thoughts on that draft schedule?
Misty, these interviews with candidates, it'll just be, there'll only be one candidate in the executive session at a time. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, Trustee Hamilton, that's correct. So the first candidate, and I obviously haven't assigned these yet, but the first candidate would be just in the room alone. It would be with all of the school board members as well as myself. I'm kind of there to try to help guide the candidates so that they don't ask you any questions that they shouldn't, and vice versa. So it goes back to some of the comments we talked about, hiring practices and making sure you're considering candidates without discrimination and things like that. So yeah, it would be one candidate per interview time slot.
Madam Chair and Misty, will we have a list of questions that we're going to be asking each candidate? So we're asking them all the same questions?
Madam Chair, Trustee Teeter. So that's a great question that actually goes into my next talking point. So regarding interview questions, if we talked about interview questions right now, then any candidates who are watching this will be able to know all the questions we're going to ask. So typically what I recommend is, first of all, we have some great survey results from your community and staff. They provided some sample questions of what they think you should ask. So I'll work with your chairwoman to go through those questions and decide, okay, what out of this list are really some great ones that we want to use that you can get the most information from. I also have a database of various questions that talk about a lot of the duties that superintendents do. So those are the questions that we want to ask. Typically, we do about 9 to 12 questions is how many you can get through in about a 1 hour interview slot. So what I'd like to do is then work with your chairwoman and we work together to decide what these questions might be. Now, before we start doing that, you all are welcome individually to email me some topics. So let's pretend, I always use this example, let's pretend that your board feels like budgeting and finance is really, really important. So if that's something that you really want a question designed about, you would send me that topic and your chairwoman and I would work on that topic and that question. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I have a question. In here on the schedule that you made us, there's a blank. So with Bob coming back and doing the interviews, so I think for site tours would be in the morning time. Okay.
That is correct, Mrs.
Okay. So now would the finalists be in a group together with one person, or do they each have their own person to go around?
Madam Chair, I've actually seen it done a few ways.
Okay.
I think it's certainly fine to just have them all in one, and I've never had a complaint about them doing that. The reason I like that is all of them get the exact same message. So no one's getting a clue about what your district is really looking for, or if you happen to have a staff member in the building at the time, they're not saying, well, here's what we really want, and only one candidate hears that information. So it's really important to us to keep everything fair so all the candidates hear the exact same information. So for that reason, I would recommend that they just go on the site tour together, and you can have 1 or 2 people taking them on that tour if you'd like, perhaps a staff member, or if you have a community member that knows your schools really well, just something like that would be acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
Misty and Madam Chair, how important is it that they see all the sites? Because we have 2 remotely located sites that would be difficult to do in that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, Trustee Teeter, that is entirely up to you guys. So part of the reason I left those time slots blank is because I don't know exactly how long this would take someone to have them go to all of your sites, or if there's just certain ones that you want to share, or you go through a list and at this particular time you're done and you go back to the district office. So it's entirely up to you guys.
Madam Chair.
Mhm.
We got a full day here.
Mm.
Are we gonna stop and have a meal or what's the format?
Well, we don't participate in the morning, so.
Yeah, but we start participating at 1 and we keep going till the wee hours of the night. I
We
mean.
would need to eat then between 4:45 and 5:30.
Okay.
If you would like, I can order food.
Oh, that sounds, get a pizza.
I can order from Idaho Pizza Company. I'll make a note.
Terry, you just need to eat a big breakfast.
Yeah.
That's not the,
He gets cranky when he gets hungry.
And Madam Chair, I have the
It's
community and
not the
staff meet
keto,
finalists starting at 5:30.
Mhm.
You guys tell me what you think is a good time for your community and staff, because that's what's most important is we want them to come. So, is 5:30 a good start time? Is 6 o'clock a good start time? Would you like this 1.5 hours or 2 hours?
I would change it to 6 because a lot of people work over the hill and coming back and kids at camp or whatever. Maybe 6 to 7:30.
You know, it's late out. So.
All right, so Madam Chair, I will work with you then, so we'll get this schedule finalized and then we'll get it out, we'll have it I'll work with your clerk to get this all finalized so we can get it posted for you all. Let's see, I've talked about all of those topics at this point. There's one other topic I'd like to discuss with you all. You can't take action tonight, but since you will be having a special meeting, perhaps this is something that you can have added to the agenda to take action on if you so choose. Sometimes boards elect to provide finalists with some sort of travel reimbursement. Generally, people who live close or within the state don't usually ask for it. You do have one particular candidate. I have not heard from any of your candidates asking for this, so I'm just telling you this from my historical knowledge. But you do have one out-of-state candidate who will drive quite a long distance. So I don't know if the board would like to consider providing like just a flat sum of a mileage reimbursement, or if he may have to stay at a hotel or something like that. Again, we can't make a decision today, but I'm just providing that as something for you all to think about. And maybe we can get that on your agenda for Friday so that you can, if you so choose, and you can offer a small stipend of some sort if you think that's needed. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Any other questions for Misty? Thank you. Okay. All right, next up, we have maintenance project reports. Summary of student occupied buildings, detail of student occupied buildings. This is Cheryl, or is this just provided for us?
Informational for you. It was asked to be an agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay,
Terry
Terry had asked for them.
Yeah, I asked for it, but I'm kind of in a quandary because when I read through it, it looks like it was a lot of salaries.
Yes, the majority of it is salaries.
So it added up to over $500,000 worth of salaries. Where's the money that goes actually into the capital improvements?
The 611, that fund, it's House Bill 743, allows us to use the maintenance salaries as part of the $611,000.
So we don't have any capital improvements then.
There is some down below there. If you
But
look at
just-
everything from 300 on down to 550.
Instead of taking a lot more time, maybe you and I should sit and talk.
It's House Bill, what?
House Bill 733.
Way down the list, about
That's what I refer to it because that's what I remember.
Okay,
It's
page about 712 or 112 or 114, something like that. I think I ran into some maintenance items. Yeah.
No, I'd be happy to sit down and go over that. And I wasn't sure how you wanted it. I wasn't sure what you needed. That gives you all the detail of what's happened throughout the year.
Sure. I'm comfortable with that format, but I'm looking for more. So we'll sit and talk. If that's acceptable with the chair.
Madam Chair, Trustee Jones, I don't know if in a more simplistic proposal to rectify, basically in layman's terms, how we understand the projects around the district, if it might be advantageous to have the director of maintenance for the district possibly attend the monthly school board meeting or give a one-page summary of the projects that are ongoing around the district. So we're not just necessarily crunching numbers, but it's, hey, this is what we're juggling currently at this facility, that facility, and what our progress is. And then the following month could given, because I know, and just kind of going back, and I always hate to beat that drum, but just in my experience as a city councilman, we always had department heads at every city council meeting. It's twice a month. The director of public works, the superintendent of public works, and they talked about these projects. So the actual council people understood as being the representatives of the constituents in the tax base, what ongoing projects we have in the city. So I don't see a lot of difference for the school district, because I know we have projects going on within the school district that we as a board are unaware of. And it'd just be nice to be appraised of those ahead of time, so that when we get questions from the tax base, we don't scratch our head and say we don't know. We actually have a clue as to what's going on within our own school district.
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Smith, Mike is on vacation, and I know that he would, has mentioned before that he would like to visit with the board and go over projects, and I'm sure that he could type up a report for us.
Madam Chair, at our last meeting, when we approved the budget, there was a series of projects that we were going to do this year. I'd like to, find out when they're scheduled, what is the work progress on them, and so forth. I think that's what I was more looking for. Going through there and seeing all those numbers, that's helpful. But if we can break it down that, we did a bathroom overhaul, or we did doors here, or a field there, or whatever, just to give a better sense so that we can take back to the public and let them know that, your tax dollars are being spent in areas to upgrade the school district, which has great needs.
Madam Chair, and sometimes it's not always tax dollars. I know there was an article in this week's Messenger about improvements to our baseball facility, and I believe a lot of those are, raised through fundraising efforts without knowing the full story. So just kind of telling that story in more defined terms might be beneficial to everybody. Plus, with the YouTube feed, people who are tuning in can get a better understanding and additional communication.
Madam Chair, I think that we've talked about this many times as far as having a maintenance plan and schedule. So we have an idea of what needs to be done, when it's going to be done. I think that that's something that we should probably have our maintenance manager present to us on a monthly basis. So we have an idea of what's coming up, what the plan is to maintain our facilities long-term, monthly, annually, semi-annually, whatever it might be. So we're sure that we are proceeding in the right direction.
Okay, when Mike comes back, I'll get in contact with him. Does anybody else have any questions regarding the reports that Cheryl sent to us? Okay, moving on. Plan for teacher professional development. And I don't know who was doing this.
Madam Chair, I just put that in there because that's what we covered last year at this time. In the past, it was the superintendent who provided that update, or the director of curriculum, who is also on vacation. So that's just to let you know what they've got scheduled, so that you know when they're coming back and who's coming back when, and when our all staff meeting is. So that's just to give you guys an idea of what that schedule looks like.
And this is their in-service?
Yeah, it's pretty much the 2 weeks prior to, between 1 to 2 weeks prior to school starting. It just shows you the schedule of who's coming back when, and who's getting trained where, and for how long, and when their professional development, when their work days, when open houses,
Madam Chair, that's all determined upon their contract, right? When they got,
I think it was helpful, Heather, just because it helped me to realize how quickly this is gonna happen.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Like a month.
The all staff meeting is on the 19th. At the middle school, okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding that sheet?
Madam Chair, just so other board members know that weren't here last year, usually the board attends the 19th all-staff meeting.
Okay.
So I want to put that on your calendar. At least the first part of it, I think I stayed till noon.
Yeah, the superintendent likes to introduce the board to the staff. Well, has in the past. We don't know what the new one will do, but I'm guessing they'll want to do the same thing.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right, moving on, OLA update. Trout Architects had scheduled to go up tomorrow. However, Mike Smith is on vacation. And so now Trout is going to be with Mike on July 18th. So they will be headed up to assess the building on the 18th when Mike comes back. So, any questions about that? Okay, update on middle school PERDA teacher.
Okay, I'm gonna do this with your help.
We'll help out. Rich is here as well, so we've got it covered.
Okay, thank you. We met on the 9th here in the office. Myself, Mr. Areola, Cindy Roberts, Stacy, and Rich, and who else? There's somebody else there.
We had Stephen Payne and.
Yeah, Steve Payne and Susan Jenkins, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Cindy Spalding was in.
Pat got on the phone.
Yeah, okay, yes, and Pat was on the phone. Anyway, there was a goodly number, a very good meeting. I think we came to some conclusions. We've got some things that have to still be done, but the idea of moving the freshman wheel, the orientation class for careers, down to the middle school seemed to be something that 8th grade, that everybody there was supportive of. And so the next question, or there are several questions that brings up, one of which of course is how do you get the teacher and what the teacher's going to be doing. It'll have to be an occupationally certified teacher. PERDA has agreed to fund it. The middle school is providing a room with, while PERDA will furnish the room. The AD, the average daily attendance, stays with middle school. Anyway, I think everything is pretty much going the right direction. The PERDA met that afternoon, and Mr. Weiniger was kind enough to meet with that board as well. And the general gist of it is we want to get advertising for a position as soon as possible. And talking with Dan, he says we don't really have to have everything formalized in order to do the posting. Am I correct there?
Right, we can post.
Yeah. And but we need to get a service agreement or an MOU between the entities done, and we have a joint meeting on the 25th, and I think putting an action item there to approve or disapprove that agreement at that time would be appropriate. The attorney with PERDA, Chris Jorgensen, is going to go through and come up with a contract and give that to Rich and Stacy and Pat to go over, and then of course I think we probably will want our attorney Amy look at that as well, and Dan, of course, as well. At any rate, I would just propose that we put it on an action agenda for our January 25 meeting.
July 25.
What did I say?
January.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Uh-huh.
As good as I do. At any rate, with the understanding that things are going pretty well, I was impressed with and pleased with the meeting, and I think it went well. Dan, did you have, Mr. Harrell, did you have anything?
No, that was a great meeting, and I think we're all excited about the concept. Just some logistics that, we threw out on the table in regards to hiring the certified individual who will be the immediate supervisor. Will it be Rich and Stacy? Will it be Pat and Perta? What are the legalities of that? If you run into non-renewal situations at the end with a certified teacher, then who's been doing the evaluation? And that can get pretty muddy. So we had that conversation, and our recommendation was to have Stacy and Rich as the immediate supervisor. Maybe this would be an employee of the Emmett School District. And of course, Pat would have the ability to observe, partner with Stacy and Rich in regards to observation and evaluation. And again, it was just protecting both sides. And then we, of course, had the conversation on financing, that, the ADA, who would keep the ADA, how will we pay for the teacher, how will we work that if it's an Emmett School District employee. I had suggested that maybe it could be a reimbursement back to the district since it would be an Emmett employee. So those were the kinds of things we threw out on the table and had good conversations. Curriculum, Pat and Stacy and Rich would sit down, look at the curriculum. Pat would be the driver on that in regards to the exploratory opportunities and what we want the kids to be exposed to in the 8th grade. So that is what we came out of yesterday's meeting with here, and then the board. And I think, as Bill and I talked today, we need to get it posted. Let's see what candidates we have out there. In the meantime, we'll get the MOU and or some clear parameters established in regards to roles and responsibilities.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, if I might add, PERDA's major concern was curricula. They wanted to be able to establish the curricula, and they understood that the employee would be in the middle school building, and so they really felt like Rich and Stacy would be the supervisor, the obvious supervisor. So,
Rich, anything that you like that?
Yeah, like it's been stated, good meetings both here and at the Berta board meeting. And I think, bottom line is that, it's good, it's a good concept. I think, we need to work together on it and move forward. I know, there's some, like Dan stated, PERT is concerned about the curriculum and making sure that what we teach is gonna feed into their programs that they offer at the high school level. And that's our goal as well, along with we talked about some soft skills that students need to be successful in high school as well as in life. But we'd like to incorporate into that pathways course as well, and they seem to be amenable to that. So I think we'll do some good things with it.
Madam Chairman, one thing that I was at the meeting yesterday with PERTA, that this is a 3-year pilot project program and we can renegotiate the memorandum of understanding or the service agreement at the end of each year. So it's subject to change as we go forward, but everybody's excited about moving forward from my perspective.
Madam Chair, I got a question.
Mhm.
Trying to wrap my head around. So help me out with this. So like Brandon will be a freshman next year. If he would have had that this year, would have that opened it up so that he didn't have to do that exploratory as a freshman? He could have just went straight into.
Right, that's what they'd like to move to, is eliminating that freshman.
So it opens up more electives?
So that they can get in and finish a pathway more completely. They lose some time, it's good to get that exposure, but there's some things there that they'd like to do. You get to, you could probably speak to it better than me, but if you want to get to your ag classes and the welding and whatnot, you can start that freshman year and really get a little bit farther into it than do it if you're going through that wheel the whole year long.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, sounds like a good meeting. Right. We will, I'll have that added as an action item on the.
Madam Chairman, one other thing is, the PERDA board's gonna also, at that joint meeting, have a similar action item, so we can both get it approved at the same time.
Okay. Okay, moving on, training update. Next Wednesday, July 17th, the ISBA is having a training in Boise. It's called the Summer Leadership Institute, and I believe myself and Terry and Ronnie. Anybody else attending the training?
That's what day?
It's on the 17th, Boise.
I'm going as well.
And Heather is gonna attend.
Yeah.
And you are too?
8 a.m., right?
Sorry,
I don't know.
what was the
I just
question?
took the day off.
Here, I can tell you, I think I have it here.
I got it on my calendar for that.
Summer leadership. It is from Boise, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I can add, I have me, Terry, myself, and Ronnie, who are already registered.
Yeah.
So if I need anybody else, I need to do that tomorrow.
Am I getting under the deadline there? Is it okay if we do it, put me on there now?
For this one, it is. There's the early bird registration on this one, so I can add you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My bad.
Okay, and then, in November, they are gonna be having the, convention up in Coeur d'Alene. So I believe that is November 6th through the 8th.
Yes, and I have Jody, Terry, and he's got a guest.
Also,
Madam Chairman, I think I'm added to that also.
yes, Bob is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think I'm not looking at my updated list. And then I also registered the superintendent with a question mark.
Okay.
So he's on there as well, he or she. Well, I guess we're down to boy, to males, so he.
Okay, also, Morton and Company, they were going to be here, this month, but due to our superintendent search, we postponed that to when we have a superintendent. So he could not come to the August meeting, but he can come to the September meeting. So 6 to 7, we can have a, small training with a man from Morton and Company Insurance. His name is Chad Ranstrom. And then also, I spoke with David Brinkman from ISBA. And with the ISBA and their trainings, like up at the convention, for example, they're trying, it's nice to have all these little workshops and trainings, but like, for example, the open meeting law training, they're trying to cram it into 1 hour and 15 minutes. So to me, I think in more in-depth training for more time with question and answer period, a scenario at the end. And so I talked to David and he said that yes, that they can come over and do that for us in a more in-depth training that can take more time, because cramming it into 1 hour and 15 minutes is just not, to me, it's just not doable for something so critical for us to learn.
So I'm sure, we take an afternoon or?
Yeah, so they can come over here, like we've started like at 4:00 and so he said that, right now I think that they're booked the month of July because of all of the Summer Leadership Institute trainings. They have 5 around the state, so I will get back with him and then talk with the new superintendent as well and see if we can get something figured out.
Cool.
I will.
Madam Chair, when you talk to Mr. Brinkman, would you also ask him about the costs associated? Because I know the last training we had was rather costly, and if we kind of know that going in or ahead of time.
Right. And one of the things that Amy, our legal counsel, suggested is to use our funds as much. And so I want to get in contact with them because of the little trainings that we've had, that stuff adds up, and then the training that we did have, to make sure we're not going over, because I believe we have $6,600 a year.
And you're getting close
So, yes, so.
already.
So, when does that renew? Do you know?
When does it
July
renew?
1.
July 1.
But
So
with all
we're-
these adding,
Right.
they're adding into that already, so.
Okay, so I can make a list and see, and then we can decide, to make sure that we're not going over it anywhere, and then pick out the most, type of trainings that we think that we need to focus on.
We can get a list of their,
Right, you
Presentations.
can go on their website, and they have all of the events, they have all of, their workshops, and then they list all the little classes that they can come over and help us with. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out and put it on the agenda for us. Okay, budget items. Bills. Mr. Teeter.
Yes, I went through the bills this morning. There are 5 lists this month. Total of $772,321.60. And the reason it's broken down into different is part of it is on last year's budget, the 2018-19, and then part of it's on the new budget for the next year. Some of the major expenses on last year was the math rollout. There's 174,000 and change to Caxton's in there. The remainder of what was there on the last year's budget was just the normal things that you see. I had really no questions. I got into, we did have to do something for the building permit for the middle school roof and the building permit for the suite roof. And those were 2 separate items on the list. On the 2019-20 budget, I made a note here that there was almost $230,000 in software renewal and technology on that, out of the $422,000 that's bills. So I understand that our annual renewal on the software, most of this comes due right at July 1st, according to Cheryl. We also had the Chromebook license renewals was about $40,000. No, it was about
$104,000.
$104,000 for 195 Chromebook renewals licenses.
That was a purchase.
That was a purchase? Okay, for Chromebooks. So 495
Correct.
new Chromebooks, okay. Is that to replace the ones on the outgoing ones for the seniors that graduated, et cetera?
Right, so we placed all of our 5-year-old ones, which would be the seniors plus some others that were in carts around the district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Chairman, it does say Chromebook licensing. Is that just a misprint?
There's 2 on there. There's a line for the Chromebooks and a line for the licensing.
Because
The
there's
licensing
different ways.
is for the management console where we install software and manage, control,
Okay.
all that inventory, all that's done from that management console. That's about $24, I think, per device, if I remember correctly.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So the total amount of the bills was, like I said, 722,000.
There's 5 lists, that's why I had a question for Cheryl earlier, and she answered it for me, so. because it was on a different list.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
Cheryl, so that renewal cost, does that seem to be like jumping every year, or has it been pretty consistent?
It's been consistent up until, I think we had some new programs added on last year, and this year it has jumped up a little bit. Dr. Roberts is trying to take as much of that from the district and pay them with her state funding that she can, which has helped a lot. But yes, it has been jumping.
Madam Chairman, I see we got an invoice for advanced ed for $2,400, and we still haven't seen a report from last year's. This invoice is for the coming year, I assume. Is that the invoice is something that's not paid yet?
I don't think, looking at that, and I had a question too, because there was not only accreditation for the high school, and this is for the high school and Black Canyon High School. There was also in the bill packet, a accreditation for the Patriot Center, and I thought there was one other school. Middle school, yes. And so if we have those, I think we should talk about those two accreditations, but these are the only two that are on to be paid this time. And it is for the ones, my understanding, that we just completed this spring, right?
I understand we're gonna have a session on the 25th where we will see those accreditation. I would certainly like to see that a week ahead so I can digest it. So.
So, Bob, let me understand this. There is other accreditations that was performed?
Yeah, but well, I just picked up because there was an accreditation for the Patriot Center listed there.
I believe theirs are this coming.
That's what I'm thinking, they're for
Every other year.
Black Canyon and the Patriot Center, I believe, are this coming year.
Okay, these two, we said it was for the high school in Black Canyon, so.
it's for the on-site review.
The onsite.
Yeah. And the Patriot Center, Black Canyon are on their 5-year cycle. So they're up for review this coming year, much like the high school. They were on their 5-year cycle, which was this past year.
Okay.
Yeah, and so those invoices should have been were they for Patriot Center and Black Canyon?
Honestly, you know about what page they're on. They should say what schools they're in.
It says under advanced ed, and it was under the
Under
list
invoice.
3, the start of list 3, first page of list 3. But I had written down there was the high school and Black Canyon High School were the two that we were paying the bill for. Unless I misunderstood it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Usually we pay up front for accreditation to be
Okay.
part of advanced ed, which we argued, but we didn't, of course, get anywhere with it. We would have to pay up front a fee to advanced ed if you want to be accredited and part of that process. And so we kind of had an annual for accreditation. And then I got an invoice for Patriot Center for about $1,200, and that was my understanding for 1920 school year, and that would include our annual fee to the on-site review, which
Maybe these are all for 1920 because we're going to redo the high school.
We're not paying.
We're not paying for that, that's right.
So I'm thinking they're for 1920 school year, yeah, and it's just an
And I
annual
believe it's
cost we
Patriot
have.
Center and it was a Black Cat.
It'd be
It was
Black
those
Canyon,
two.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about the bills?
Madam Chairman, Renaissance, 49,000. I guess Renaissance for 49,000. I'm just curious what we get for that. What is Renaissance?
Well,
There's two programs we use for Renaissance. Renaissance bought Myon.
Okay, it's software then
Right,
primarily.
it's software based, and there's also the Renaissance Star is a testing that we administer several times throughout the year. So the Star, there's also the Star
Yeah.
program. Yeah.
Okay.
And it gives us a baseline benchmark when kids are assessed, and then as they're assessed periodically through the year, and then kind of a post to see what growth they've made with reading, with mathematics.
Is it worth it?
Yes, because with ISATs, you only get them once a year in the summer. By then, too late to do anything with them. So, yes, it's highly used.
Mm-hmm.
The MyOn software is really, it's an online program, but for the earliest readers, which is who we use it for primarily, it's kind of a read along, highlights the word, reads it to them so they can follow along. We use it in the summer here as well.
Now that they're doing that.
A lot of good come out of it from what I'm hearing, but.
And Bill, too, both programs, math and reading, they really can break it down per child as far as skills that they're maybe still weak and need further remediation and assistance. And there are really some nice profiling reports that come out of it that you can track the kids. And I think it's really good data. We can't rely on the ISAT just because of the timing to really what are we seeing with that data. So, yeah, that'd be a good little, I think, we keep saying workshops and more meetings, but what a great little workshop that would be, and just even looking at, like the STAR, for example, and kind of see what those reports look like.
It'd be interesting to know how we're doing.
And how it breaks it down. And when you see a child grow within a year, 8-9 months, that's pretty exciting. And I know, individual staff feel real good about that. So.
Madam Chair, if that kind of a class could be put together for the board, I would be first in line for it.
You should, yeah.
So why don't you try to give us an idea of what it would be advantageous for staff to put it on for us?
Well, I've always been a believer, for boards, to sometimes separate these meetings where we take care of business and pay the bills, and then workshops to where we can, within a workshop setting, start looking at things like this and start showing you so you understand what STAR math is and what STAR reading is and how we administer in district. That'd be a great workshop, would be my suggestion.
Well, we put a lot of money out for licenses and electronics and IT and whatnot, and it would be best served if we understood, what are we buying for those bucks?
You bet.
Anybody else have any questions about the bills? You need to make a motion to approve the bills?
I move to approve the bills.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on, budget review.
So I put in your packet, again, the budget for June. It will not include the June bills that you approved tonight, unfortunately. But anyway, did anybody have any questions on what I put in your packets? Again, a lot of information. I did want to explain one thing to you, and I don't know if any of you noticed or questioned it, but the accruals in the salaries and benefits. And we do this every year. We accrue all of the salaries and benefits, and what they are is a liability to the district remaining at the end of the year. And that is our salaries and benefits that have been earned but not paid. And so what we do is we accrue those back into this fiscal year. And Cindy will go ahead and run the payroll in July. And what that does is she runs it in July, it credits June. She runs it in August, it credits June. So those are actually pulled back into the following year. But we do that for accounting purposes. Anybody have any questions on that or?
Madam Chair, I noticed on the revenues that it's like 95%. So we're still waiting for funds?
Yes, we have our July payment that has not come from the state yet, and that's the cleanup payment for the year.
About the 15th?
Yes. I'm hoping, I looked back and it has come early on occasion, so I'm hoping that it comes early. I'm just curious.
Madam Chair, you don't know how much that will be, what the number is yet? So,
No. I know the big part of it's going to be our exceptional child tuition equivalency and SED. They haven't paid us the full. I'm hoping that's around just close to $200,000. And we've got some of our base apportionment that we have not been paid for yet on the amount on our units. We got a little bit of transportation. We received our final transportation report, and I think we had an increase. I can't remember what the dollar amount was, but it was a few thousand more dollars, so that was a good thing.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting on all the cleanup stuff from the state.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else have any more questions for Cheryl?
They don't have a rush order on that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, district reports, PERDA report.
Bill and I attended the PERDA meeting last night. And we've already touched on the majority of the meeting, which was discussing the middle school teacher. The meeting was held out at the work center, which was my first opportunity to be in that facility. We not only toured the part of the facility that they are currently in, but we toured the rest of the facility. That entire building has been offered to PERDA, and they're evaluating what they're going to do, if anything. It's kind of tabled at this time, looking at costs. Minutes were approved. We talked about a possible purchase of land. That's been tabled also for the time being. Talked about the Carl Perkins spending. There was one action item where we approved purchase of a tire balancing machine for the auto shop. Meeting dates for the next year are the same as they were for this year, the second Tuesday of each month, except for during legislative session. We go to the second Friday of each month. Election of officers, Stephen Thames, the chair, Susan Jenkins, vice chair. Jared Hines is now the treasurer, and Michelle Chadwick is the secretary. Pat's administrative report. Our kids just attended Teams USA competition in Louisville, Kentucky. And I didn't get what the scores were exactly. I think it was 9th out of 49 teams in one area and 7th out of 41 teams in another area, but I don't know what the areas were. Pat's currently in Florida, and he's attending a Schoology seminar. The audit is in process. And the last thing is they're moving forward the posting of the part-time counselor position that was previously approved by the board. That's it. Anything to add, Bill?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next, board member input for future agenda items. Anybody have any topics?
I was, Madam Chair, maybe hoping to get an update on the suite roof.
Middle school.
Yeah, might as well throw the middle school on there too.
Middle school gym.
Middle school, I saw this morning, Madam Chair, on the way over here this afternoon, that there was a lift out there with a bunch of shingles on it. So they're doing something. And I think Rich told us that they brought the dumpsters out and hadn't started as of last night. So they're working today. And in the bill list, there was about $40-some thousand for the suite as advance on that were paid for. Part of it under the contract. So they're working up there also.
Yeah, it's roped off and they've started on it. I just would like to get an update of where they're at. And
yeah, there were some pictures in the bills showing the tear off was done and starting on some covering and looked like it was in process.
Any other items?
I'd like to see us go back and revisit maintenance. Maybe we can get a review of last year from our director of maintenance. And then looking forward, we had a number of items that were on the list last meeting that we approved for the budget. And I'd like to see a schedule of where those different items are going to begin the project and going forward with that.
Okay.
Based on levy funds, right?
Right.
Anything else? Okay, we need to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
See,
Nay. Okay.
Notes, please. Bring everybody's notes.
No, I'm not looking for a question. You know, you.
They'll give her your notes.
Yeah.
My question is just on the 6 to 7:30. Is that a drop-in type meeting or a set meeting with the candidates?
It's a meet and greet, so the community can come.
I'll be back.
But they can come in and leave or and come in at 7:15 and just catch the end, or is it
That's
meant
what my
to be?
That was a meet and greet like an open house.
Yeah. like
Okay,
an open
that's why I
house.
wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that it wasn't like a
Bring your own milk.
formal program
No.
where you're gonna have them each speak and say
I
something.
thought that they have this amount of time.
I know you're.
Yeah, because then an hour and a half doesn't give it time, so it's, yeah, so we can drop it at 6, leave.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
We think, we're kind of new at this.
Okay, well, that's all right. I just wasn't quite sure, so I just wanted to clarify that and make sure we can have.
Hey, I can clarify with Misty, but that's what my.
Okay, yeah, if there's anything different from that, let me know.
And time will be 6 to 7:30.
Right, I got that change, and then, I don't wanna,
Informational.
so I wanna, searching for backgrounds and pictures on the 3 of them too, so we'll have a little bio.
Well, I want to know more about all,
Right there.
money on software.
Okay.